For those who are watching this video, I'd love to welcome all of you. So basically, I'm going to be going through the Nasdaq New York Open model, right? And later on, we shall backtest the month of September. And in the backtest, you are going to appreciate this model here. So it's called the Nasdaq New York session model. So basically, we shall be trading Nasdaq around about the New York session. So before I dig in any further, we shall go through the market approach and a few key points to note. Now, under the market approach guidelines, so now the market approach guidelines basically highlights the key things that I look out for when I'm approaching Nasdaq, especially round about the New York Open. Yeah, so now point number one, of course, you have to identify the market structure. And of course, this will be on H4 or daily, right? So for market structure, basically, what we look out for is the uptrend structure and the downtrend structure. It's as simple as that. The uptrend structure, where we look out for buy opportunities, and then the downtrend structure, where we look out for sale opportunities. Now, point number two, we need to confirm if we are in an uptrend or downtrend. This one is pretty easy. You can be able to know what trend you're in, right? Uptrend or downtrend, you have to be clear of the trend that you're going to be working with, right? Before even the session opens. Point number three, be on the lookout for micro trends, right? So micro trends, basically, a micro trend is a trend within a main trend. So let me just show you this illustration here. So now here we have an uptrend, and now this uptrend has a micro downtrend, right? So now these are squares here contain micro downtrends, right? So sometimes you can be able to trade these micro trends depending on how the market structure presents itself. And usually these micro trends present themselves when price is retracing back to a zone before moving in the main trend. Same thing for the downtrend. For the downtrend, you'll have a micro uptrend. So I want you to take note of this item here. Then point number four, conclude if price is on a continuation or at a reversal. Now, this one is very sensitive because most times a price can, be pushing in a trend, right? An uptrend or a downtrend. But now there reaches a level where it will likely reverse. So you have to be able to, confirm if price is at the potential reversal point. And this is usually when price tests a higher time frame zone, supply or demand zone. There could be a potential reversal. So you have to, be on the lookout for that. So just to make it clear. So now in this illustration, as you can see, we have a micro uptrend. So in this micro uptrend, this is basically a continuation, right? But now price then reaches a zone, right? So at this zone here, we shall be anticipating a potential reversal. So now for you to buy at this zone would be risky, right? So you have to be on the lookout for potential reversals, right? When you analyzing your charts. Then point number five, identify liquidity levels, right? If they are there, because you could be stopped out as liquidity. So now look out for equal highs or equal lows from maybe your H1 time frame to H4 time frame, so that you're on the safer side, right? Never trade against liquidity. For instance, let me use this illustration here. Yeah, now take for instance, price is trending up, the micro uptrend. Now you reach a level here where you could have a potential reversal. But now you notice we have equal highs, and of course, those equal highs create what you call liquidity. So now for you to sell along that level would be very risky, right? So now the likelihood that price will break that level is very high. So meaning you have to also, sieve out such areas of liquidity to be on the safer side. And now finally, point number 4. Now this is the core of the strategy, right? This is where we're going to get the setup. So now derive the BAD analysis, SOP, from your M5 time frame to your M30 time frame. Now, this is where we get our entries basically, using the BAD analysis, SOP. So BAD, B stands for breaker, A stands for aperture price, and D stands for the decision point area, right? And this is very simple. It's a very simple model. Let me illustrate it here. So now the analysis, this is where we get our entries basically on a lower time frames after, identifying the market structure, identifying the trend, and putting all these dots together. Then go down to your lower time frame and look out for this model here. Now here we have our sale model over the BAD analysis. As you can see, we have the breaker, aperture price, then a decision point area. And now this is right before the New York open session, right? So once the session opens, price will potentially, move in the direction of that trend there. Same thing for the buy model. Same thing for the buy model. We look out for, the breaker, aperture price, then decision point area. Then price potentially will, pump up in the direction of the trend, right? After the New York open, right? Yeah, so I think this is a good introduction to the market approach. Now, key points to note, let me just go through these. Point number 1, trade with a trend that is clear. Point number 2, you can place limit orders if price isn't at your main decision point before the open, right? So now sometimes before the open, you can have a very clear BAD analysis setup, right? But then price hasn't, tested your key decision point. So you're free to put limit orders, because most times when the session opens, price tends to spike towards those decision points before reversing, right, in the trend. And then point number 3, now this one is very important. If you have a high impact news, right, 30 to 60 minutes after the open, if you check your news calendar and you see that you have a high impact news 30 to 60 minutes after the open, take that day off. Do not trade that day. Do not trade that day there. Then also point number 4, if you have a Fed interest rate, because now the Fed interest rate usually is released hours after the session, New York session. So if you have Fed interest rate, I recommend that you also take that day off, right? Because usually before the Fed interest rate news is released, there's a lot of manipulation in price, right? Price doesn't move normally. Even at the New York open, you'll notice lots of manipulation. So it's better you take that day off. Then also US bank holidays, take that day off there. Point number 5, I think this one I explained it, take note of reversal points. Then point number 6, so aim for at least a 1 to 2 risk to reward. Because now you can also aim for 1 to 3, 1 to 4, but 1 to 2 is can be consistently achieved. That is why I stick to 1 to 2. it's easier for one to be consistent with it, because most times you can aim for 1 to 3, then price reverses back to your stop loss, right? So most times price can hit 1 to 2, then reverses. So 1 to 2 is a safer target for this model here. I then learn to accept your losses and also learn to accept your wins. Point number 7, one trade at a time. Take one trade per day, right? One trade at a time. Then point number 8, I focus on trading the main setup, which is the bad analysis, SOP, and not the prediction of the New York Open. Now focus on the main setup. Don't focus on predicting the impulse of the session, right? Which will give you much more clarity. And then at point number 9, trades can be placed before the NY Open as long as the key zones have been tested, right? So if you have a price already at your decision point on your bad analysis SOP, you can just place an entry a few minutes to the open. That is perfectly okay. And then finally, point number 10. So now this is just a formula which will give you consistency, right? So one pair, for this case, we're looking at Nasdaq, plus one model, right? Which is the approach I've explained above there. Then a plus one session, which is the New York Open. Then plus risk management, you definitely result into consistency, right? You become consistent, definitely. Yeah, so I think this is a clear introduction to the model of the Nasdaq New York session, right? It's a beautiful session. It's a beautiful model, basically. Yeah, so now I was able to backtest from January up to September. But now for this video, we're going to backtest September. So in this backtest, I'm just going to go through some of the data I gathered as I was backtesting, and you'll get to appreciate the win rate, the consistency, the mechanical approach in which you can, follow this approach even as you're trading this model here. So September, let me get to the Forex calendar. Yeah, so now I've picked from 29th of August to 30th of September, right? So that I can be able to refer to days where we have a high impact news. Yeah, so now we're going to start with 29th of August, which is a Monday, the first trading week of September. So August entered into September, so it's all within 1 week, right? So let me open that folder, 29th August to 2nd September. So we're trading 29th of August. That's the first day, it's a Monday. Yeah, so now under my notes for that session, 29th August, New York Open. Yeah, so now that day we had no news, as you can see from the calendar. We had no news that day, right? And then you'll notice we had a downtrend on our H4 time frame. So let me just open the H4 view. So now this vertical line shows a period before the New York session open, right? So I'm just focusing on the left side, right before the New York session open. So I was able to, identify a downtrend on my H4 time frame. So now meaning my bias was a sell. So now meaning I had to derive, I had to look out for a sell setup on a lower time frame, right? And as you can see under my notes, M15 presented for us the bad analysis SOP. So let me jump right there. M15. Yeah, so now this is M15 as you can see. So you can notice we have approach of price, and price is approaching a decision point right there, right? But now notice now this green vertical line represents the New York Open, the candle of the New York Open. And as you can see, price spiked up, but it didn't test our decision point. So meaning our sell limit order wasn't triggered that day there. So now in the journal, as you can see, 29th of August, where the sale setup and the sell limit order wasn't triggered, right? So we didn't have a trade that day there based on the data gathered. So we jump to the next day, which is 30th. So now notice on 30th, we had a high impact news. We had the CB consumer confidence and job openings. And this news was around 30 minutes after, was meant to be released 30 minutes after the New York Open, right? So meaning this day was to be taken off, right? So I'll take this day off definitely. And as per the journal, you can see we took the day off, right? No trade was taken that day. Let's jump to Wednesday. So now Wednesday we had the news, but now the news was before the New York Open, right? So if you have news before the New York Open, you can trade the Open because your setup won't be affected by news. But if you have news after the Open, then take that day off. But if you have news before the Open, then you can attempt to trade if you find an opportunity, right? So now Wednesday, let me get to 31st August, New York Open. Yeah, so now in my under my notes, no post NY Open news, as I've shown you. So now our H4 had a downtrend. Let me open it. Yeah, so now as you can see on the left side of this vertical line before the open, you can notice we had a clear downtrend. So meaning I was looking out for sell opportunities on lower time frames. So if I jump right, so now under in my M15, we're able to identify an SOP, the bad analysis. So let me open the M15. So now what we see here was a perfect setup, right? We had the breaker, then approach of price, and you can notice price was already at a decision point, right? Now this is M15. I think on a lower time frame, the decision point was much more clear. It's a hidden base basically. So now price basically reversed at the open, at the New York Open, right? So this was a profitable setup based on the data, right? So we can see how we on our Wednesday, it was a sell setup and it was closed in profit to up 2% in profit. Now let's jump to our 1st of September, which was a Thursday. Now notice we have a news, ISM manufacturing PMI. And now this news is 30 minutes, was meant to be released 30 minutes after the New York Open. That means I had to take this day off. And in the journal, that day was taken off, right? Then finally, 2nd of September, 2nd September, we had, we had NFP, but now NFP is released before the open. So meaning we could trade the open, right? Because after the open, we wouldn't have any manipulation from the news, right? So let me open that folder. second, let me see the notes I had. So we had no post on New York Open News. Then again, on our H4 time frame, we had a downtrend. So let me open the H4 view. Yeah, so now you can see on our left-hand side, before the open, we had a perfect downtrend forming up. So meaning I was looking out for sell opportunities. And as you can see, our M15 presented for us a good setup, right? A bad analysis setup. So when I say bad, I explained earlier on, breaker, aperture price, then a decision point error, right? So M15 presented that for us. So let me open the M15. Yeah, so now as you can see, we had the breaker, then aperture price, right? And then up here we had a decision point that wasn't yet tested before the New York Open, right? So now meaning up here we placed sell limit orders at this main decision point, right? So now when the New York session got opened, price basically pushed up and filled these orders at this decision point and then reversed. And this was a profit setup, right? And as you can see in my journal, it was a sell setup and closed in profit. Yeah, so now week one, 2 trades, 2 wins, and we're up 4%, right? As I said, one trade at a time, 1 trade per day, right? More is less. Now let's jump into week two. A moment, let me remove these. So I'm basically going through the data that I backtested in summary, basically. So now second week, that is a 5th to 9th. Let's see on the calendar. So now 5th to 9th. So on the 5th, we had a bank holiday, right? A US bank holiday. So now meaning on the 5th, we had to take the day off, a US bank holiday. And then on the 6th, the next day, Tuesday, we had ISM services. This was released 30 minutes, was meant to be released 30 minutes after the New York Open. So meaning we had to take this day off also. As you can see, it was marked as a day off in the data. And now Wednesday, which is the 7th, we had no news basically. So let me get to that folder. Yeah, so now under my notes, we had no news that day. So we had an H for downtrend and a micro uptrend. So I think I explained this in the introduction. So now when you have a downtrend, sometimes you will notice price is retracing up. And during that retracement, that is where you can be able to see a clear micro uptrend, right? That is what I was able to spot. Let me open the H4 view. Yeah, so now as you can see to the left, you can notice when a downtrend, a clear downtrend in our H4 time frame. But now notice price was attempting to retrace up, right? Towards this decision point right up there, right? So now meaning my bias was a micro uptrend. So meaning I was looking out for a buy opportunity, a short-term buy opportunity basically, since my major bias was an H4 downtrend. So as you can see now, M5 are presented for us a setup, the BAD SOP, right? So let me open M5. So now as you can see under M5, we have the breaker, and then we have aperture price, then notice price tests a decision point area, right? So now meaning here, now this was before the open, right? So now meaning here we had to look out for a buy entry. So we basically bought, and of course put our stop loss right below, right? And as you can see at the open, price just, pushed up nicely. And that was a profit setup, right? And as you can see, it was a buy setup, our closing profit. Then the next day, which was a Thursday, let me see. So now on Thursday, we had a news, the Fed. Yeah, so now Fed Chair Powell was speaking, but now he spoke about 25 minutes before the open. Now, so meaning we could trade the open since it his speech was before the open. So meaning we could trade at the New York session open, in essence, right? Yeah, so let me get to that folder. That is 8th over September. So under my notes, we had no post on New York open news. Now, same thing, as you can see, we had an extra downtrend and a micro uptrend. So let me just show that to you from this screenshot here. So now notice the previous day we placed a buy trade, anticipating that price would reverse from that zone there, right? But now price kept on pushing up and price broke that level there. So as soon as price broke that level there, meaning price would now potentially keep on pushing up towards the next level. So now meaning our bias was a micro uptrend at that point in time, right? So we had to look out for a buy setup, and the M30 gave us a BAD SOP. So let me get to M30. Now, what you see here before the New York Open on Nasdaq, so you can see the breaker, you can see approach of price, and then right at the open, price just pushed up. So this was a profitable setup. And as you can see, closed, it was a buy setup, closed in profit. Then finally on Friday, the 9th of September, let me see, no news. Let me open that folder. That is the 9th of September. Yeah, so we had no news. So H for now was officially an uptrend. So as you can see on the H for time frame on the screenshot, you can now see that now price is now pushing up. It's pushing further up. And now notice it broke a level there, right? We had a breaker on an H for time frame. So this was basically now confirming to us a change from the downtrend to now an uptrend, basically, along this area here, along this point here where I'm highlighting. So now meaning we had to look out for buy opportunities right before the open. So as you can see now, we got an SOP on M15 at the BAD SOP. Now let me open that screenshot. Yeah, these are setups, these models appear all the time. If you see it, you can't unsee it. It's just a repetition. So now notice, as long as you have your bias on your H4 time frame, look out for that SOP on a lower time frame. Most of the time you'll get it. If you don't get it, it's better you stay out of the market, right? So now notice we had the breaker, approach your price to the decision point area, and then price just flew up at the New York Open, right? It was a nice setup, basically. And as you can see on the Friday, we closed in profit. Buy setup, closed in profit. So now week 2, 3 trades and 3 wins, 100% week. And the cumulative profit was 10% for the 2 weeks combined, basically, right? So now, consistency, as I said, one pair, one model, one session, and the risk management, you'll definitely see a consistency. And as you can see, this data that I backtested, it's a reflecting that, formula in essence. Now let's jump to week 3. That's from 12th to 16th. Yeah, so now on 12th, we didn't have news. Let me get the folder. Yeah, now 12th September, New York Open. Let me see the notes. Yeah, so we had no news, and we had an uptrend on H4, meaning I had to look out for a buy setup. So M5 gave us the BAD SOP, right? So let me open M5. Yeah, so now you can see this very clearly, right? You can just see for yourself. So we have the breaker, right? Approach your price, and then and now for this entry was placed before the New York Open, right? That is why I said in our introduction, I said focus on trading the main setup. Do not focus on the prediction of the open, right? Because now for this case here, we had a very a clear setup, right? The breaker, aperture price. Now, as soon as price approached our decision point area, you had no reason not to buy. So based on my data, we bought, right, before the open. And now when the session open, price just kept on pumping up, right? Because now this SOP is what we follow. The BAD SOP. It's the model we basically follow, right? Before the New York Open. It is our signature that we use, to place these entries here. And as you can see, Monday, the buy setup, closing profit. Let's get to the 13th, the second day. Now on 13th, we had a CPI news, but CPI news was before the session open, right? So meaning we could trade the open. So let me get the folder. 13th of September, the notes. Yes, we had no post in my open news. So now the edge for now, we had a downtrend, right? Let me see. Yeah, so now you can see what CPI did, right? CPI pushed price down, right? It pushed price down. And for those who trade in prop firms, trading the news, it's risky because we have issues of slippage, widespreads, and extra. So it's better to be on the safer side. I don't trade the news. Maybe you can trade the news on your personal account. But if you have a prop firm account, stay out of the news. It's for your own benefit. Yeah, so now you can see CPI pumped price down. So now at this point here, down here, now that was now, we're now approaching the New York Open. So now meaning here we have to look out for sell setup, right? And as you can see, we got a setup on our M5 time frame, a BAD sell setup. So let me remove these. So M5, as you can see, yeah, so now I need to focus on this critically. Let me zoom it in. So now this vertical line basically shows it's about 5 minutes to the New York Open. So about 5 minutes to the New York Open, I was able to look at structure here on this setup here. So you can see we have a breaker somewhere there. We have a price approaching, and then we have a decision point area right there. So now before the open, I just sold, then I placed the stop loss right above the zone. So when the session got open, price just, kept on dropping down. So this was a profitable setup, as you can see. Day number 2, sale setup, closing profit. Let me jump to 14th. 14th, we had a PPI. PPI is before the session, so we could trade that day. Let me get to 14th. Yeah, so now no poster NY open news. So we have a downtrend on our actual time frame. Let me show that to you. Yeah, so you can see now this on the left side of this vertical line, that is before the open. So now notice our bias was a downtrend, right? So meaning we're looking out for sale opportunities on lower time frames. Then M5 again presents to us the BAD SOP for the sale setup. Now I wanted to, let me zoom this out, right? This is M5 basically, M5 Nasdaq. So now before the open, right? So we had a breaker there, right? The breaker. Then we had an approach of price towards a decision point area. So now notice now this vertical line is 1325. This is about 5 minutes to the open, right? So now as soon as the open got released, you can see how price just spooked down. So meaning we sold right at this decision point area. So it hit the 1 to 2 immediately before manipulation occurred, right? Meaning it was still a profitable setup. That is why I'm like, stick to 1 to 2, because 1 to 2 is easily attainable in the long-term perspective, right? If you try to aim for bigger ratios, you might end up getting nothing. It's easier to pocket 1 to 2 most of the time. So I hope you take note of that. Yeah, so in the January 9th, where are we? Yeah, on the 14th. On the 14th of September, the sale setup closed in profit. Now let's jump to our 15th. Our 15th, we had a retail sales, right, before the open. So meaning we could trade the session. Let me get the folder. Yeah, it's getting boring. If your trading upwards becomes boring, that is when you know you're becoming consistent. If your upwards is really complicated, right? You're doing mental gymnastics, you mess up. Keep it as simple as possible. Follow the trend, right? As I said, under point number 1 here, trade with the trend, right? Trade with the trend. Gauge the trend from the higher time frame and then look out for the BAD SOP in the lower time frame. It's as simple as that, nothing much. Yeah, so now 15th of September, let me see the notes. Yeah, so now no post NY open news, right? Then we had an edge for downtrend. Let me open that. Yeah, so you can see clearly here on the left side of this vertical line, we had a clear downtrend. So meaning our bias was the sell. So meaning we had to look out for sell opportunities. And as you can see, M5 gave us an SOP. Let me see that setup. Yeah, so now notice here we had the breaker, approach of price. So now around this area here, price hadn't yet, tested this sell limit area, right? So meaning we put our sell limit orders right above there. So at the open, price basically spiked up. It didn't reverse immediately, just kept on pushing up and stopped us out before dropping down. But the bias was correct. It was a downtrend, right? Stick to the trend. So here we go to stopped out. And as you can see the data, we had a loss for that day. The sales setup are closed in loss. Now let me jump to 16th. 16th, we had a news, preliminary UOM consumer sentiment. So we couldn't trade this day. The news was meant to be released 30 minutes after the open. So that was a day off, right? So as you can see, 16th of September, day off, right? Yeah, so this is a week 3. So week 3, we took 4 trades and lost 1, right? The weekly win rate was 75%. The cumulative win rate for the 3 weeks was 88%, and we were up 15% in net profit, right? Now let's jump into the 4th week. That's between the 19th to 23rd. Let me see, 19th. Yeah, so 19th, no news. Let me remove these. Let me get to 19th. 19th of September, New York Open. Yeah, so now here we had no news. We had a downtrend in our H4 time frame, right? As you can see. Yeah, now notice the downtrend on the left side of this vertical line. That's before the New York Open. Our bias was a downtrend, basically. So meaning we had to look out for sell opportunities in lower time frames. So then we're able to get a setup on our M15, a BAD setup. So let me get the M15. Yeah, so as you can see, we had a downtrend, right? Price dropped down, then we had an upward of price towards this decision point area. But now notice at the open, price just spooked up, basically, meaning we got stopped out, right? We got stopped out. So 19th of September, sales setup closed in loss, right? The downtrend didn't hold in a lower time frame. So we had some sort of a micro uptrend potentially. Yeah, then on the 20th, let me see, 20th, we still had no news. Let me close these. 20th of September. Yeah, so we had no news. Our bias was a downtrend on the H4 time frame. Let me see. The H4 time frame. So what we see here is a downtrend basically. Before the open, that is on the left-hand side of the vertical line. Our bias was basically a downtrend. So meaning we had to look out for a sales setup, and we got one on M5, the BAD SOP. A moment. I think that's meant to be M15, right? M15. So now notice on our M15 now we had a sell model basically, right? We had a breaker, approach of price, but now you can see what happened. At the open, price didn't so basically price, spooked up to the sell limit at the open, but it failed to reverse, right? At the zone of the SOP. It went and hit our stop loss. So we had a loss on that day. Sell setup closed in lows. Then our 21st, as you can see, we had the Fed interest rate, FOMC, the Federal Funds rate. So now meaning we couldn't trade that day there, right? There's lots of manipulation on such days, or even days before the news is released. You'll notice funny movement in price. So in the journal, there was a day off, right? Then 22nd, We had no news. Let me open the folder. 22nd, no news. We had a downtrend on our H4, as you can see. Right, look at the H4 time from here. So now look on the left-hand side of this vertical line, right? So now the bias was just a downtrend, a clear downtrend. So meaning we had to look out for a sell setup in the lower time frame. And M5 presented to us the bad analysis. So let me see that. Yeah, so as you can see, we had the breaker, aperture price. So now just right towards the New York open price, kept on dropping down, right? So now this entry was placed before the open, basically, right? It was a clear setup. So if you see a clear setup, you can, place an early entry a few minutes to the open. It's still very valid, right? So that day we closed in profit. Then on 23rd, as you can see, we had a flash services about 15 minutes after the New York Open. So we had to take that day off, basically. Yeah, we had to take that day off there, 23rd flash services. Yeah, so now this is a week 4. So week 4, we took 3 trades and one only one. So we lost 2 trades this week. Yeah, so the win rate for that week was 33%. Overall win rate for the 4 weeks, 75%, and overall profit 15%. Now let's jump onto the final week, the 4th week, the last week of September. Yeah, so now 26th, we didn't have a news. Let me get that folder. Let me see the notes. Yeah, so we had no news. The H4 had now H4 we had an H for downtrend and micro uptrend. I think I explained this clearly. The concept of the micro trends, right? So as you can see in H4, now notice this horizontal line here, this dark line. Now this dark line signifies a potential reversal point, right? Because now price had tested a higher time frame zone. Let me just show you it practically now. 26th. Let me get to H4. 26th. Yeah, 26th is around there. So now notice this, this spike there. If you move to your left, right, you'll notice that price had, tested a zone, right, to the left on our H4 time frame, right? So meaning that area was a potential point of reversal for a micro uptrend, right? That is why I got that bias there, right here. So I was looking out for a micro uptrend because of that potential reversal there. So as you can see, we had to look out for a buy setup. So we got a buy setup on our M5. And as you can see, M5, we had the SOP, right? And now I want you to focus here, right here. So now notice we had the breaker, then price spiked up, then retraced a bit towards the decision point area, right? So now, right before about 25 minutes, rather 20 minutes to the open, we placed a buy order with our stop loss right below here. And you can now see when the session opened, price just spooked up. And also here we had equal highs, meaning we had liquidity right there. So I think I explained the aspect of liquidity levels, right? You also have to, look out for them. Yeah, so that was the trade basically, the BADSOP right here. So it was a nice buy setup. So that did the buy setup a closing profit. Then let me see 27th. We had news. CB consumer confidence, which was meant to be released 30 minutes after the open. Yeah, so we had to take that. We had to take the day off. Now let's get to Wednesday, 28th. We had no news. Yes, we had no news on 28th. Let me see the folder. So in my notes, we had no news. We had a downtrend with the H4, then M15 presented to us. Let me first open the H4 so that you can see the trend. Yeah, the downtrend, right? Yeah, so now on the left-hand side, before the open, you can see we were projecting a downtrend clearly, right? So then under M15, we had a sell mode, right? The breaker approach your price towards our decision point area. But as you can see, price didn't, at the open, price just, spooked up and stopped us out. So meaning we closed in lows, but we still followed the model, right? Downtrend, then you look out for a setup on a lower time frame. Yeah, so we closed in loss, sell setup closed in loss. Let's get to 29th. 29th, we had no news. Let me get to the folder. Yeah, so now no news. We had a downtrend on our H4. So M5 gave us, let me see H4 downtrend. Yeah, you can see now this clearly. So H4 on the left-hand side before the open, you could see it was a clear downtrend. So M5 are presented to us a sell opportunity. And as you can see, it played out perfectly. We had a breaker, approach of price, and then price just dropped down at the open of the New York session. So this was a profit setup, as you can see there. Then finally, the 30th of September, we had no news after. This was before, so we had to trade that day. Yeah, so now no post NY open news. H4, we had a downtrend, as you can all see. On the left-hand side, we were anticipating a downtrend. Then M15 presented to us a setup, right? But now notice we had the breaker approach of price. But now if you notice, price didn't respect the zone, right? It just spooked up and took us out. Yeah, so that is why we closed in a loss. Yeah, so week 5, 4 trades and 2 wins only and 2 losses. So it was a 50% week. The overall win rate for the entire month of September was 68%, and the overall profit 17%. Yeah, so now these are the results of the data I was able to backtest using this model here, right? The Nasdaq, the New York session model. Yeah, so it's a very simple model. It's not really complicated. Basically, you follow the trend and then you look out for entries on lower time frames using the BADSOP. It's as simple as that. Putting into consideration these key points that I hinted clearly. Yeah, so I think that marks the end of the video. I believe you guys have been able to appreciate this video. Yeah, because I put in a lot of work to come up with this data here. It took lots of hours. So let me just show you the results of the previous month. Yeah, so now September overall profit for the month was 17%. Then for August, overall profit was also 17%, right? So basically, I backtested every session critically using the parameters I had put forward, right? And these were the beautiful results I was able to get based on the data. July, we had a 20%, 84% win rate. Beautiful. June, we had a 21% overall profit with a 72% overall win rate. It was another good month. Then May, we had a 28.9% overall profit with a 93%. So meaning we only had one losing trade for the entire month, right? If I was able to go through the setups, you guys would just be amazed by how this model repeats itself over and over again during the session. April, we had 30% net profit with an 88% win rate. As you can see, we had 2 losses for the month based on the data I critically extracted, right? Without any bias. Because with the markets, you can't fool the markets. You have to be accountable to yourself because you're dealing with money. March, we had a win rate we had an overall profit of 23.8% with an 86% win rate. So we also had 2 losses for the month. You can see we took only 15 trades for the month and we lost 2. February, we had a 94% win rate. You know, it sounds like a joke, but that is the data I gathered. 27% profit with 16 trades and 1 trade lost, right? Then finally, January, we had about 22% and 93% win rate. So we took 1 loss basically, right? 14 trades, 13 wins, right? And all the setups are in their various folders up here. For January, everything is there, right? For instance, I could open this 3rd January 2022. I think we had news that day. 4th January, we had news that day. 5th. Yeah, so you can see 5th H4 view. H4 view, we had a potential downtrend, right? Along that square. Then our entry was on M15. And as you can see, the breaker, aperture price. So I did everything critically so that there's no bias about the model. Yeah, so this marks the end of the video. And I hope you guys can now appreciate this model here, basically, right? It's a very beautiful model. Very beautiful model. Yeah, I wish you guys all the best, and let me stop here.